You want to make sure that you've got the keywords that are on the job description also in your resume. I think networking is really key. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is just submitting a generic resume, again, without tailoring to the role.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ChinUp Career Podcast. My name is Nidal Khaznadar, a career coach and founder of ChinUp Global. This podcast is all about sharing the best practices, strategies, and expert insights to help professionals like you land their dream jobs and grow their careers. Today, I'm excited to welcome a special guest, Daniel Bradshaw, an expert in recruitment and technical sourcing in top companies like Microsoft and Amazon. Hello, Daniel. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Nidal, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So today we're going to explore the top strategies for landing a job at Microsoft. You have experience in top companies, different companies, but let's talk today about Microsoft and let's dive in. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience recruiting for Microsoft?
Sure. Yeah. So at Microsoft, I was a sourcing recruiter, primarily supporting data center construction and some corporate roles as well. So specifically, I was hiring for construction cost managers, site planners, and I also helped out with getting some HR business partners, sourcers, and other recruiters in the role. So my job involved strategic sourcing. It mainly was engaging passive talent, as well as partnering very closely with the hiring managers to fill these critical positions. I also focused on optimizing sourcing strategies, reducing time to fill, and improving diversity hiring initiatives.
Awesome. Now, Daniel, Microsoft is big, and many people would kind of dream of joining a big company like Microsoft. What are some key things candidates should know before getting hired at a huge company like Microsoft?
Sure. Yeah. A lot of the large tech companies have certain values, or like Amazon call them leadership principles. So you want to be able to demonstrate that you maybe value some of these same things. So Microsoft specifically values, a growth mindset, collaboration, and innovation. Those are kind of the big three that they have. They have more than that, but those are the big three that I saw when I was there. And so when you're interviewing there, you want to be able to demonstrate your ability to learn, ability to adapt, ability to contribute to a team-oriented environment. One of the more important things to aligning to Microsoft's cultural principles, again, such as like customer obsession, diverse perspectives, and continuous improvement. Is being able to showcase that you've held those values yourself, that you've demonstrated that in the past.
Right.
Another key factor would really be a strong LinkedIn presence as well. Recruiters are actively searching for candidates, so optimizing your LinkedIn profile with relevant skills, relevant keywords can really increase your visibility to those recruiters.
Awesome. And now, Daniel, we're talking about when we talk about Microsoft, I know it's a huge tech company, but there are positions, different positions at Microsoft. Now we're talking about, are we talking about tech positions or in general, even finance positions could be contracts positions, could be procurement. Are we talking about specifically tech positions or in general?
Yeah, no, that would really just be in general. I mean, like you said, Microsoft's a large company. They have a lot of different roles and a lot of different, parts of their business. The values are going to be across all of Microsoft. I mean, they want to know from the engineers to the finance professionals to the recruiters to anyone and everyone who works at Microsoft, that you again value those certain things. Again, the growth mindset, collaboration, and innovation. Because again, they see those values as what has made them unique and what has made them into the company they are today.
Right, right. Now, people tell me all the time that decision makers in the hiring process um, is the hiring manager. Now, as a recruiter and someone who has more than 10, 12 years experience in recruitment at Microsoft and other companies. What role do recruiters play in the hiring process?
Sure. Yeah, recruiters and hiring managers, I mean, they work together as partners in the process. Yes, hiring manager is going to make the final decision, but recruiters play a real critical role in sourcing the right talent. We screen candidates and we share alignment with the company's goals and values as well. So we're kind of the gatekeepers, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But we also serve as advisors. We provide insights on things like, market trends, candidate availability, and even compensation as well. I mean, I've had more than a few conversations about, hey, we've got a job posted at this range, but every candidate that I'm talking to, they're more on the higher end of that range, or maybe they overlap, specifically, exactly with our range. But I do provide that feedback kind of as an advisor to the hiring manager. Hey, here's what I'm seeing in the market, and here's what my coworkers are also seeing out there as well. Now, I will say a good recruiter will provide the candidate with, provide candidates throughout the process. They'll offer, resume feedback, and they'll even help with interview preparation as well. But engaging recruiters, early and building a strong relationship is really what's going to help a candidate provide that kind of significant advantage to getting in at Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. That's a very important point, Daniel. Now, we talked about engaging recruiters, candidates to effectively engage recruiters in the hiring process. Now, are you saying that recruiters in Microsoft will help candidates to even tweak their resumes or prepare for the interviews?
Well, the good ones should. Yeah, I mean that's something I did every time I was speaking with the candidate. I told them here's what the interview process is going to look like, and then I would, after I get off that initial screen with them, I would send them an email that has maybe links to, interview prep material. Again, Microsoft, Amazon, a lot of the tech companies have their interview process on their website. And so whether you're looking for it or not, I make sure the candidate has that in their hands so they can be prepared for that next steps. And I tell them, hey, here's kind of what we're looking for in the process. Please look over, Microsoft's values, and then, have some stories ready about how you've embodied those values. And there's times where I've said, hey, I like your resume. We've talked about your experience, but the resume isn't quite showing this. Could you update your resume and just send that back to me? So I've done both. I've provided resume feedback, and I certainly always provide interview preparation. Because ultimately, I tell people this all the time. We want to hire you. We want the best candidate for the position, and we want to give you all the tools to succeed. But it goes both ways. If I tell you how to prepare, you need to also go out there and prepare. And if I say, hey, here's something we need to see on your resume, please update that and send that back over.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now, I remember we talked about LinkedIn. If do you see it a good um, or effective way that candidates reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn? Let's say I'm applying for a position at Microsoft. I'm gonna go to LinkedIn and search for recruiters on LinkedIn, recruiters that they work at Microsoft, and reach out to them and say, "Hey, I applied for these positions. Can you help?"
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, not every recruiter is going to respond. Not every recruiter has the time to, like when I was, posting these recruiter or sourcer positions, we're getting hundreds of resumes, hundreds of applications a day. I didn't always get people reaching out, but the few people who did, I'd say, okay, let me go take a look, or yeah, I can share your profile with that recruiter. But it kind of depends on the message. Some people would say, hey, could I get 30 minutes of your time to talk about my experience? I'm busy. I don't know if I can always take 30 minutes for everyone who reaches out. But they say, hey, I just applied for this role, and maybe they send me the link or they send me the job ID. They say, hey, could you just, forward it to the recruiter who's in charge, or could you just share my profile? Sure, that takes all of about 2 minutes of my time. I have no problem doing that. That's fine. So it depends on, kind of, who you're reaching out to and kind of what you're asking for. Again, it is to some degree a numbers game. Not every recruiter is going to respond. Not every recruiter is going to be able to give you the time of day, but definitely reach out. I mean, at the end of the day, recruiters, we like helping people. We want to help you to help yourself.
Right.
So, absolutely reach out and see, see if they'll share your profile.
Awesome. Now, talking about Microsoft specifically, Daniel, how can professionals stand out in the application process? Now, many big tech companies they're out there, but specifically for Microsoft, how professionals can stand out.
Yeah. Well, I'd say there's really two ways to do that. The first one is targeted application, and what I mean by that is tailoring your resume to each job posting.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do that, you want to emphasize your relevant experience and using network or industry keywords. That way, when a recruiter, again, when you have hundreds and hundreds of resumes, uh, we want to be able to go through all of them. But one thing we'll do to kind of get to the cream of the crop, get to those who seem to be the best fit, is we'll do searches within the application. Say, all right, I need to look for a recruiter. Yeah, again, let's say it's a recruiter role and you've applied, but you just sent a general resume. If I'm looking for someone who's who's recruited for engineers before, or maybe finance or marketing professionals, I'm gonna look for recruiter, talent acquisition specialist, all the words you use for recruiter, and I'm gonna look for finance, and I'm gonna look for marketing. And so if you don't have those terms on your resume, you
Right.
know. I'm just not going to, you're not going to be at the top of that list, unfortunately. So you want to make sure that you've got the keywords that are on the job description also in your resume. Now, the second one I'd say is, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, but networking. Networking is really key. So again, connecting with Microsoft employees on LinkedIn. So that could be recruiters. It could also be hiring managers. Could be, if you're an engineer, maybe connect with the engineers who are currently doing a similar role at Microsoft. But it can be more than that. Attending tech conferences. A lot of these tech companies, they have their own, I'd say, their own sponsored events. It could be a conference, it could be something else, but they do that to help candidates get noticed, and they do that to get more brand awareness. They do that to get more candidates in their pipeline and in their pool. So, take a look at, or keep a lookout for some of these, company sponsored events, because they can certainly help you get noticed at the end of the day.
Right. And when I talk to, I'm a career coach. I talk to a lot of job seekers, a lot of professionals, and they seem to really make a lot of mistakes. Now, what are some of the biggest mistakes professionals make when applying to big companies like similar to Microsoft?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is just submitting a generic resume, again, without tailoring it to the role. And Microsoft, like most other companies, they use an applicant tracking system. So, resumes that don't have the relevant keywords may not reach the recruiter. But I don't want to confuse anyone. The applicant tracking system is not filtering out resumes. Most don't do that. There are some that maybe if you answer a certain question incorrectly, it might go ahead and auto reject you.
Hmm.
Most just don't do that. So most of the time, if your resume is getting rejected, it is because a recruiter looked at it and it just wasn't right for the role. So, you want to make sure you have those relevant keywords on there. But the other big mistake I see is people preparing to, uh, or people failing to prepare for the behavior interview.
Hmm.
Again, all these large tech companies, Microsoft notwithstanding, they have a very structured interview process, and part of that is asking behavior type questions. And so those questions are going to sound something like, um, "Tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult customer," or "Tell me about a time you went above and beyond for a customer." They want to get an idea of how you handled certain situations in the past, so we can gauge how you might handle them in the future. And the way to prepare for this stuff, or prepare for these interviews is, and we've all heard the STAR method, situation, task, action, result. But it's really about having a story to tell. It's having a story about how you embodied maybe one of these values. So it's some of the candidates just don't have these stories ready. And the second one is just they're not in the STAR method. They're bouncing around. They're saying, well, here was the situation that led to this result. And oh, here was my action. And but this was the task I had. They're kind of fumbling around the story. And so it can be hard to follow. It can be hard for the interviewer to take notes. And it also makes you look like you're not prepared, which honestly you probably weren't if you're kind of bouncing around the story. So, but that's the two big things: is submitting a generic resume and just not being prepared for the behavior part of the interview.
Awesome. Now, these are very important points. The first one is about the resume, general resume, and the ATS system. We're going to talk about it in a second. The second point is about preparing for interviews. Now, Janiel, you shared very important um, tip and advice here, which is prepare for the behavioral questions and make sure that you have stories, you use strategies like STAR, and make sure that you are prepared. Any other advice would you give to someone to prepare for interviews at Microsoft?
Sure. I would say first is simply to research Microsoft's core values and be able to tie them into your responses. The company's going to be looking for candidates who align with those principles. Again, principles of innovation, principles of collaboration, and a growth mindset. So they want to know that you've been a team player in the past and that you've gone out of your way to grow in your career, whether that was the company said, hey, we're all going to go get the certification, or you thought it was a good idea to get it because it helped you in your career. It helped you, to figure out a problem or whatnot. Second would be, again, really practice the behavior interview questions. Again, using that STAR method, because it'll stand out. Even just talking to a friend or a recruiter or a spouse, just say, hey, let me practice telling you these stories, a few times. Just doing it 2 or 3 times, you will be, so much better than when you first did it.
Yeah.
So again, first is researching core values. Second is you're preparing or just practicing for the interviews. Um, and finally, I would say, because there's a lot of people who are applying for technical roles, and I would say, ensure you're well prepared for the assessments. Whether it's a coding assessment, whether it's a case study, or any kind of like whiteboarding exercise. The key is really preparation, understanding the technical side of things. Part of it's going to be confidence. How confident are you in there? I've certainly seen people interview, and while they knew the code and knew the problem very well, they're confident in saying what they don't know, and that's just well respected in engineering circles. When someone goes, here's what I know and here's what I don't know, and I'm going to write down notes right now, so I learn it right now. Whether or not this interview goes well enough for me to get a job or not, I want to learn that. I want to know it. So just being able to demonstrate how your experience translates into the value for the company is just unbelievably important.
Absolutely. And this is for preparing for interviews. Now, AI is everywhere, right? And we see a lot of tools here and there. And when I talk to my clients, a few of them will bring a new tool to me, say, "Hey, let's let's use this. Hey, how about that? How about that? I used this in the past." Now, how can job seekers and professionals leverage AI and sourcing tools like ATS systems to enhance their job search?
Yeah, AI tools are really becoming a game changer in job searching. Candidates can use tools like obviously ChatGPT, Copilot to help refine their resumes. You can even use it to, tailor a cover letter, or even, they have tools out there that help you practice mock interviews. But I will say, even on the other side of it, there's tools out there like Seek Out and Easy Hire that'll help job seekers identify roles that'll match their skills as well.
Mhm.
Uh, and recruiters even use AI tools that will help find LinkedIn profiles and find candidates out there. So optimizing your LinkedIn profile with an AI, with kind of AI driven insights, can really help, give your profile some visibility as well.
Awesome. And as you said, Daniel, and so this is what I remember, that ATS system, which is the system that filters resumes.
Mhm.
It's so the resumes, they go through this system, but this system is the one who's gonna, let's say, judge or control or make the last decision about your resume to go to the hiring manager, or there is another way of filtration?
Yeah, no, there's another way of filtering through candidates, and recruiters gonna be the ones who actually set that up. I mean, I have heard of some ATS or ATSs using an AI powered system to try to filter through resumes. I don't think that's the norm. I don't think most companies are using that right now.
Mm.
Who knows what happens in the future? But again, tailoring your resume and optimizing it towards the job description is becoming increasingly important because there's just so many people applying for some of these jobs. In order to stand out, you've got to you've got to showcase that, hey, you've done this job before, or you're the right person for the role. So um, yeah, it's generally not AI doing it. It's generally recruiters going and filtering through resumes. But whether it's an AI system or whether it's a person, doesn't detract from the fact that you need to optimize your profile and optimize your resume.
Got it. Yeah, that's a must. All right. Now, Daniel, any final tips for professionals aiming for roles at top tech companies like Microsoft?
Yeah, I would say persistence is key. I mean, we've all heard of the person who, they applied for one job, they went for went for one or two interviews, and they got the job. They didn't interview for anyone else, and it worked out for them. That's just not the case for a lot of people, unfortunately. So I would say persistence is key. The hiring process at these major tech firms can be very competitive. And so candidates who are continuously improving their approach, and what that might look like is, hey, whether that's networking, earning certifications, or even just refining your interview skills, those are the people who are going to stand out. Also, really leveraging LinkedIn as much as possible. Again, connecting with hiring managers, following LinkedIn employees, connecting with them, engaging with industry content, reaching out to recruiters. That's going to help you to kind of leverage that network when these roles do come out, or if you're applying, to help you kind of stand out from your competition. But finally, I'd say my last advice would simply be just be adaptable. If with your search strategy, your job search strategy, if one approach isn't working, be adaptable enough to pivot your strategy and seek feedback from professionals in the field. If one thing isn't working, try something else. And if that doesn't work, try something else. You never know where, hey, you tailored your resume one time and that's the one that led to an interview, or you reached out to one recruiter and they're the ones who got you that initial screen. You never know where your next job's going to come from. So being able to change the strategy can certainly, help you find that next role.
Awesome. So be adaptable, be flexible, be patient, because it's gonna take time to find the right job and land your dream job as well. Danielle, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It was a great conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Nidal.